All right, guys, so big day for Scourge of War Waterloo. The companion mod for the Grog toolbar is out and available, and today we're going to talk about where to get it, what to do with it, how to set it up. We're going to talk about mod prioritization as well as all the changes the Grog gameplay mod makes to the Grog toolbar. So this is not part of my official Grog toolbar tutorial series that will be coming later. This is just an update video about the companion mod and what we're going to get out of it. I'm not going to start the toolbar tutorial series yet, only because there are a few minor gameplay related issues I've already brought to Randy's attention, and I just want to give him a chance to check them out, go through them, see what's working as intended, see what's not working as intended, and just give him a chance to really finalize the Grog toolbar before I go and commit to making a series that is essentially going to be set in stone for the foreseeable future. That's going to be meant to be the definitive tutorial on the toolbar. I obviously want the toolbar to be 100% working as intended. Before I go and do that. So I just want to give Randy some time to look into all of that before I commit to that. Nothing I've noticed so far is really like game breaking or anything that will stop you from enjoying this mod right now as it is. But obviously for a tutorial series that's going to be up on the internet for a long time, I just want to make sure that the Grok toolbar is solidified and it's basically final form, so that the series is relevant and changes don't come along that then make it kind of irrelevant, like my old Grog toolbar series. So yeah, this video is just an update. Okay, so let's talk about what you got to do to get the mod. So you have to head over to the Norbsoft Dev forums. Now, I'm not going to post a link in the description just because technically I didn't ask Randy if I could. I'm sure he would have no problem if I did. He's posting the link himself in the Steam forums and stuff. But just, yeah, I didn't technically ask him, and I'm through stepping on people's toes. So all you got to do is head to the Norbsoft Dev forums. If you're a longtime viewer of this channel and don't know how to get to the Norbsoft Dev forums, I have not been doing my job because I used to talk about these forums all the time. But anyway, the address is just norbsoftdev.net, and it'll bring you to this page here. And you want to click on the very top forum here, the NSD News, and go down to Grog Gameplay right here. And these are the two files you're going to need to download. Grog Gameplay 64 and the scenarios for Waterloo. WL means Waterloo. And we're going to talk about why we need this in a few minutes, but just make sure you get both of these two. And that's all you need to do on the Norbsoft forum page. And then you can close that. Do whatever you want with them. I put them on my desktop just for demonstration purposes, just so you can see them. This is the Grog gameplay files, and this is the scenarios for Waterloo, and that's those files. As far as what you need to do then, you want to open up Steam, right? Make sure you're selected on Scourge of War Remastered, and go over here to Manage and open that, and you're going to go to Manage again and browse Local Files. Open that up, and it's going to bring you to all your files for Scourge of War Remastered, and you're just going to grab these two files here for the gameplay and the scenarios, and you're just going to drop them into the mods folder here. So just literally like a drag and drop, just like that, right? I already have them in there, so I don't need to do it, but just drop them into the mods folder, and that is literally all you need to do outside of the game. Just take these two things, drag them in here, drop them, and you're good to go. Okay, so we can close that, and we can close that, and now let's launch the game. Okay, so from here, what you want to do is go into modifications, right? And we're going to check these three right here: the Grog Toolbar 64, the companion mod, the Grog Gameplay X64, and the scenarios for Waterloo. And you want to check all three of these, and this is what's called mod prioritization. You want to have them in this order. These two don't matter. Just as far as these three go, you want to have the Grog Toolbar 64 on top, the gameplay one below that, and the scenarios one below that. And this is because you need to have the mods prioritized in a certain order, and it reads from top to bottom, right? So you want to have the gameplay mod prioritized below the toolbar, and then the scenarios below the gameplay mod. And that's all you have to do for that. So check these 3 boxes, and then before you exit, don't hit this button, because if you hit that button, it's just going to bring you back to the main screen. And even though you have these checks checked, you haven't actually applied the mods. You have to hit Use Selected Mods. All right, so check these 3, make sure they're in this order: toolbar, gameplay, scenarios, and then hit Use Selected Mods. Right? And that's it. We're in business. Right? The toolbar and the gameplay mod and the scenarios are now active. So let's talk about why we need that scenarios mod. Okay. So if we hit single player and we just do like we normally would, go to the Waterloo Battles tab and try to play a scenario, you're not going to get the gameplay mod, the functions from the gameplay mod. The toolbar will still work, but it's just basically going to be the Grog version of the toolbar, but it's still the stock game. So it's still going to use all the stock movement, all the stock formations, and if you try to hit anything that is not part of the stock game, if you hit a button that the Grog toolbar has that the stock game doesn't have, you can crash the game. So you never want to use the Grog toolbar and the Grog toolbar companion mod through the Waterloo Battles tab. Right? Instead, we have to take the Waterloo scenarios, right? These 10 Waterloo scenarios for the French, 10 Waterloo scenarios for the Allies, so 20 total, and we have to put them into the User Scenarios tab, because the stock Waterloo scenarios from the original game are the only scenarios that don't come in the User Scenarios tab automatically. When you install the DLCs, Quatre Bras, Ligny, and Vavra, they actually do deposit their scenarios both in the Waterloo Battles tab and in the User Scenarios tab. So you don't have to do anything for them. So let's back up here and look in the User Scenarios tab. So as you see, the DLC ones, they're already here. They just automatically install that way. They put their files both in the Waterloo Battles tab and the User Scenarios tab. But if we go down past Vavra here, you can see we now have the Waterloo scenarios too. So here's the 10 for the French. We have 2 10s because we also now have Randy's rewrite of the full battle. So these are technically 2 different scenarios. So this is the original 30,000 points to score a major victory that is virtually unlosable. And we have Randy's Dark Rob challenge here, where he cut the objectives by a huge margin, like 70-80% cut across the board, and ramped up the amount of score points you need for a major victory from 30,000 to 100,000. Obviously, truly trying to test me. And the same goes for the Allied. We have 2. They have the same score, but as far as what you need to get a major victory, they're still both 100,000 points. However, the reduced objective values are still in the Grog one. So the Randy rewrite here is still the harder version because the objectives are just not worth what they are in the original. So that's why we have 2 of each one of the full battles. One is the stock and one is Randy's rewrite. Okay, so I think that covers everything you need to do to get everything working. Just remember, grab those 2 files off the Norbsoft dev forums, drop them in the mod folder like I showed you from Steam, and then go into modifications and enable these 3 mods right here and make sure that they're in this order, and you'll be good to go. All right, so that gets the preliminaries out of the way. Let's talk about what the toolbar, the companion mod, actually brings to the table. So I'm going to launch the Eagle Triumphs here. That is kind of always the scenario I use for demonstrating things, just because both armies start off pretty separated. They're far away from each other, so we can work without having to deal with any enemy units in the vicinity. Alrighty, so let's go over here, and we'll start with a brigade here, and just show you some of what it does. So, all right, so when you boot up the scenario, the units are all placed using stock formations, right? In other words, None of the formations here are Grog toolbar formations. These are all formations you would see in the stock game. That's just how the initial deployment of everything is laid out, right? So if we look at Corson's brigade here, he's got almost 2,000 men. He's got 5 battalions, and they're deployed in the stock games version of the assault column. Which, as you can see, to me looks more like a battalion level double line formation, in that you have a kind of a forward line and then a smaller rear line. To me, it doesn't really look like what I picture an assault column looking like. And just for future reference, guys, I constantly use the word assault column and column by division interchangeably, meaning column by division, assault column. I'm essentially talking about the same formation. I just sometimes call it column by division, and sometimes I call it assault column. So if I say one, I also mean the other. So let's now open the formations button, and we'll be selected on the brigade commander. All the battalions themselves are off TC. Just the brigade commander I have on TC. And let's check out what the assault column formation looks like with the Grog toolbar. All right, so we're going to click the tightest interval of the column by division, and you can see immediately it has a different layout, right? So I'm going to speed up time here and just follow this through to completion here. Come on, boys. Run. And ignore that. We're not playing the scenario. Okay. So this now is the Grog with the Grog Companion mod. This is now what the Assault Column Brigade formation looks like. You'll notice it's very different, and I like it a lot better. The main reason I like this formation better is it has a smaller footprint. So one of my core tactics on the attack is simply brigade level charges, where you know, let's say there was an enemy brigade up here, and I just want to just give them the bulldozer, right? So I would take the brigade commander, put him right up to, you know, almost right in front of the enemy, select the column by division formation, and then TC all the battalions, so they don't once they come in range of the enemy, they don't stop thinking from themselves. And then, you know, once they come, you know, within, you know, 20, 30 yards or whatever of the enemy, from the brigade commander, I hit the charge button, and the entire battalion will charge. Even if the battalions are TC'd, the whole brigade will still charge. Just certain functions still work, even if all the battalions are TC'd. You can't select a formation, but that's why we do that before TCing all the battalions. But anyway, I'm digressing. The real point of why I like this formation better is it allows you to hit much more surgically, much more precisely the target you're trying to hit, because your brigade is covering a much smaller front, so you can have it hit much more pinpoint targets, right? So if I'm trying to hit, maybe I'm trying to overrun 2 battalions in line, you know, if I was spread out in a formation like this, I'm going to be covering a much wider front when I go and attack the enemy, which means some of my units could get drawn off charging other units that I really don't want them to charge, and maybe biting off more than they can chew. What this formation does is allow you to hit units with bigger man. It allows you to hit with bigger numbers against smaller targets, right? So chances are, if I'm going to march up against 2 battalions, I have 5, I'm going to outnumber them, and that's a big issue as far as charges go. You always want to hit with more manpower than the enemy does, and ideally higher troop quality. Those are the 2 factors that affect the outcome of a charge the most. There's other things that do, such as how many charges have they been in, what's their morale, what's their fatigue level. That all affects charges too. But you know, generally speaking, the 2 biggest contributors to what's going to help you succeed in a brigade level charge is the first, having more men, which is why doing a brigade level charge is important, because it allows you to bring the whole brigade to bear, which, you know, if you're going up against a few battalions, you're probably going to outnumber them. And then the second one is troop quality, which you can see down here. Most of these battalions are either 5 or 6, I'm sure, which is kind of average right across the board. Yeah, most of these are 5. There's a couple of 6s in there. Um, and that's basically why I like this version of the formation better. Smaller footprint, it allows you to choose more precise targets and overrun them with superior manpower without necessarily aggroing other units that you're not meaning to charge along the front that you could end up doing if you were in a formation like this, where your battalions are just covering more of a front. And this brigade is actually set up with 3 column by divisions in front and 3 in the back. But if I were to use the stock formations and actually deploy them, it would be 6 all lined up. And as you can see, that would cover a front out to about here, which is a huge front. You wouldn't want to do brigade level charges with a front that big, because who knows what the hell your outside units are going to hit. So this formation allows you to basically take your brigade and put it into a much more compact formation, so that when you hit, you're basically only hitting what you're actually meaning to hit, and you're hitting those targets with overwhelming manpower. So that's the big reason why I like this formation. Beyond that, I just think it looks better. It looks more like what I think an assault column should look like, or at least what I've seen in movies like Waterloo or something. It looked more like this than it did this. This to me looks like a battalion level double line, in terms of it's just a line in the front and a line in the back. It doesn't really look like an assault column for me. I realize it is, but it just doesn't look like it to me. So that's the other reason I like it. But that's purely just the look of the formation. The real reason I like it is gameplay related. It's simply that it covers less of a front, and it allows you to take your manpower and compact it into a smaller space, allowing you to hit much smaller targets and not have your units be way out of position as far as what they're going to hit. Okay, so beyond that, the other 3 versions of this formation are just different intervals of the space between each section of the assault column. And they do have a function. So right now, the way they're set here with this closed interval like this, the most closed, it maximizes striking power but trades off speed. So this is the slowest moving, as far as if you're marching. This is the slowest moving version of the formation. Now, as you open up the formation, I'm sorry, I'm set on the battalion. As you open up the formation, okay, there we go. What you're doing is you're reducing your striking power and increasing your speed. So this is the middle formation. This would probably be like the most balanced approach, in terms of it still has some striking power, but it moves faster than the closed version. And then on the extreme end of the spectrum, we have the fully open interval, and that opens it even further. So this is now compromising striking power, but at a boost to movement speed. So if you were trying to march up to the enemy or march to a location as quickly as possible, without having to go into like a double quick or something like a run, this would be the formation to use if you wanted to use the assault column. This would give you the most speed, and then as you got to the enemy, you could then close into the full interval to initiate your charge from the brigade or whatever. But that's basically what you're doing. So the more closed interval, it maximizes striking power while compromising movement speed. And at the opposite end of the spectrum, when you go to this, it maximizes movement speed while compromising striking power. And the middle one here just is a balance of the two. So that's basically how the assault column works with the Grog Companion mod. 99.9% of the time, the closed one is the only one I use. If I'm marching up to an enemy position or whatever, most of the time while they're moving, I'm going to be doing other stuff with other units. So speed of march is not usually an issue for me, because I'm just probably doing other stuff with other units while that's all going on anyway. So the only time I would use this I would use the fully open formation is if I really was just trying to, if I'm surprised or something, I see enemy units approaching to some location I want to cover and I need to get them there fast. Okay, then maybe I'd use that. But most of the time, the only one I use the closed level, the closed one, because I'm interested in hitting the enemy with the maximum striking power. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other formations now. All right, so let's talk about the brigade line formations and what we can do with them. All right, so the first one is just a brigade level line formation. It's just going to line all the units up in line across the board here. I'm going to speed up time to get them into position. And obviously the outside units take the longest to get there. Okay, there we go. So this is the Grog Companion Mods version of the line formation. And the biggest difference is that it no longer uses a 2-rank line, it uses a 3-rank line. So if I zoom in on a unit here, you can see that the ranks actually has 3 ranks now. 1, 2, and 3, instead of the normal 2. What does this serve to do? Again, it minimizes the footprint. Right, so what it does is it lets you deploy your brigade in line in tighter spaces, or to take up tighter positions in the line, just it covers less of a front. I'm always a fan of brigade level formations that cover less of a front, because I tend not to flare battles up all over the battlefield. I tend to go for what I call the ground of consequence. So just as an example, what's the ground of consequence in this scenario? Well, right now it's this. Why is this the ground of consequence? Because if I open the map, it's an objective, right? It's a hold objective, and it gives you 500 points, and you need 1,000 men to occupy it, right? So what does that really mean? Well, I know there are Prussians, basically, from here all the way down to here. But I'm not interested in that. With this division, I just want to capture this town, right? So anything that allows me to compress my footprint, and when I say footprint, I mean the actual space that brigades take up on the battlefield, I'm a fan of, because I only want to attack the ground of consequence, the ground that matters to me, right? So here is the ground of consequence. So the more men I can get into this area in the tightest space, in the tightest formations, the less I'm going to aggro whatever's up here or up in here or what's back here, because I'm keeping my footprint in a tighter area. And that's basically the main reason why I like all these tighter formations, all these formations that serve to reduce your footprint on the battlefield. It's just that I can fit them in tighter spaces, and it makes it easier to control. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other versions of line. I'm going to come back to line hold form, because that actually ties into some of the companion mods movement protocols as well, which is why I'm not going to talk about it quite yet. So let's talk about the double line formation. All that's going to do is put some lines in front and some lines in rear. How it does this is determined by how many battalions are in each brigade. So generally speaking, the game will try to do things evenly, right? So if you have a 4-battalion brigade, and I don't think I have any 4-battalion brigade. Oh, I do. Okay. All right. So if you have a 4-battalion brigade, and we have one right here, and we want to deploy them in double line, right? What it will do is it will try to do it as evenly as possible. Let's speed up time here in terms of it will put 2 in the front and 2 in the rear. So we'll just wait for these guys to form up here. There is a maximum. I can speed up time. It only goes so fast. I wish I could go faster, but this is it. So with a 4-battalion brigade, this is what you're going to get with the double line formation. You're going to get 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So for a 6-battalion brigade, you would get 3 in the front, 3 in the back, right? It tries to keep things as evenly as possible. But if we look at this brigade over here, we have an odd number of battalions. We have 5 battalions. So what it does is anytime there's an odd number, it's going to take the odd duck, right, the odd battalion out and push them to the front. So if we hit double line with this formation, you can see now we're going to have 3 lines in the front and 2 in the back. These look exactly like the 4-battalion version, and then it just pushes the odd duck to the front here on either the left or the right side, depending on the brigade. So let's speed up time again, show you what that looks like. All right. So there we go. So with an odd number of battalions, you're going to get something looking like that. Now, the stock game has this formation too, in terms of a brigade level double line. However, the difference between that formation and the Grog's one is once again you get the 3 rank lines. So you get a tighter footprint with the I'm sorry, guys. I got the hiccups. Of all the times for the hiccups to come. Holy mackerel. Really? While I'm making a video, I have to get the hiccups. So, with the Grog Companion mod, you're getting the 3 rank line. So, again, you have a tighter footprint. And I'm always a fan of tighter footprints. Okay, so, beyond that, we just have, down here, we have the marching column. Oh, sorry, I was selected on a battalion. If I go to the brigade commander, we can put them in marching column. What did I TC everybody? No. Come on. Marching column. Oh, okay. And it brings up these 3, right? So there's basically 3 different intervals of marching column. They do basically the same thing as the 3 intervals of assault column. So this is going to be your tightest. We'll just zoom up time here. And this is good if you just need to get units on the field in position, not near the enemy, behind your lines, but you want them available. This is a very tight footprint in terms of just I want to get my units, up near where the action is going to be, up where they'll be needed, but I'm not going to commit them to battle yet. They're still going to be well behind our lines. This is a really good formation to just get them where you want to get them while having an extremely minimal footprint, right? So from here, I mean, we could just deploy into any of these other formations to get where we want to be, right? If we want to, marching column and then advance into line or whatever, put ourselves into a line. But for just stacking brigades up somewhere behind your lines, I do really like this formation. These other formations, these other intervals of these formations, I honestly really never use, but all they do is basically the same thing. However, instead of widening from top to bottom, they widen it from left to right, and it's not by ranks, it's by battalion, right? So if we do this and open it up, it just opens the interval up. There's still marching columns. It's not going to change the formation of the battalions themselves. It's still marching columns, but it just opens the interval up. And I think there's even a wider one here. Yeah, just a little bit wider. And wow, that is crazy. I don't know why you would ever want to set a brigade up in marching column in an interval that wide, but nevertheless, there it is. You can if you want to, but I usually use this one. Just, because everything with the footprint. It's all about the footprint. It reduces the footprint. It keeps things clean and orderly. And that's pretty much it. Why did you take a little circular route there? Come on. Everybody come back. Okay. There we go. So yeah, that's basically just different intervals of the marching column. As I said, I usually just use that one. That's the one. That's my main one right there. Okay, so let's talk about the brigade level square formation. One of my personal favorites, and I'll show you why. All right, so if we form the brigade into square, it's going to take a checkerboard formation. And I'm going to speed up time again, just to show you why this is one of my favorite brigade level formations. Some of you old timers may already know just by seeing how this is laid out. Okay, so this is our brigade level square formation. It deploys kind of, like I said, it looks to me like a checkerboard, but let's look at this a little differently here. If you notice, we have 3 squares out front, right? And if you notice, they're all spaced evenly apart. If you take these rear squares and get them out of the way and, say, put them in assault column, watch how quickly you can set this up. Right, so I'm going to put this unit here and put it in assault column, And I might as well TC all my units at this point. I'm going to put this unit in assault column. We'll move you back here temporarily. And, all right, why don't we grab another unit from a different brigade here, just for demonstration purposes, and also put them in assault column behind this square. I'm sure some of you guys see where I'm going here. Right, so we now have squares out front with assault columns in the rear. What are we missing? We're missing an artillery battery. Place that. Well, that's terrible placing because it's too close. Something like that. Maybe left flank it a little bit. Oh, can the battery commanders not use that? All right, well, we'll just move them right here. Okay, close enough. But as you can see, let's speed up time one more time here. As you can see, what the brigade square formation does is allow you very quickly to set up the outlines of the fortress, the best defensive formation in the game. In my strategies and tactics playlist, guys, there's a video dedicated to this formation and why it's the best, most unassailable defensive position in the game. And this brigade level formation lets you get it going with the outline of it very, very quickly. So from here, if I wanted to fill it out, I could just grab another unit, stick it behind the battery and line. We'll speed up time again. Right, and from here, I would just have this unit here be dedicated to skirmishers, and I would kick out all my skirmishers from this one unit here. I would screen the squares. I would put 2 skirmisher units out here to screen the battery, another one in front of the squares, and then same thing, I'd grab another gun battery, put it up in between these squares, and just keep proliferating this to the right and to the left. And, you know, with that brigade level square formation, it's very, very easy to just set up the outline of the fortress and then fill it in, and you've got your brick wall, unassailable defensive formation. You could bring cavalry up and put them alongside the squares and make some horsey forts. If you want to stick a squadron in here instead of a battery, you could put a squadron here, and then take this brigade and form the squares up, and you'd have then fortresses along with some horsey forts and my whole defensive array of how I would set that up. So that is why the brigade level square formation is so good. It allows you to quickly set up the outline of the fortress without actually having to place each individual square and trying to get the placement right. The formation just does it for you. In terms of the forward squares are just automatically spaced out kind of just right to fit an 8-gun artillery battery in, because you don't actually want it so that the squares are all the way over enough so that the whole battery is has a field of fire. You kind of want them to be squeezed in like this. The guns will move. I don't keep the guns on TC. The outside guns, they'll move in and make themselves useful. But yeah, that's basically why I like that formation so much. Okay, so let's go back to taking this brigade now, and we'll just un-TC them. We'll move them a little further forward, put them back in the assault column formation. Actually, no, before we do that, halt. Let's talk about some of the movement protocols. All right, this is where a lot of the changes you're really going to see. So in the stock game, generally speaking, if you're not in combat or not anywhere near the enemy, when you go to move, a combat unit will go into marching column, and then upon approaching destination will deploy into whatever formation you set, whether line, assault column, square, whatever. If it's in combat or near the enemy, instead of moving in marching column, it will move in line. Now, moving in line is what gives you the infamous conga line, the phenomenon where units that are deployed in line formation, when they're, especially with the 2-rank lines where the footprint is even wider, where if you turn them or something, you get this kind of swirly looking conga line where the center pivots first, and then the outsides of the lines take longer to go into position, so they end up just kind of whirling and twirling and whirling and twirling. And when you have many units in line moving like that on the battlefield, it can get somewhat unsightly. So the Grog toolbar defaults to moving in column by division, or the assault column. So that is the primary form of maneuver on the battlefield with the gameplay. The Grog companion mod is the assault column is the primary movement. So let's show you what I mean here. So if I click on the brigade commander again, Corson, I'm going to un-TC the brigade so they'll all move. And let's move them up here and put them in the assault column and see how they move. So these units here are not part of that brigade. They're just units I grabbed, so we'll just move them back to where they belong. And let's speed up time. Where's my brigade commander? There he is. And as you can see, I'm going to slow time down again. They are marching in the assault column. Right? So no matter what formation I pick, they're still going to always go into I'm sorry, not marching column, assault column, before deploying into their formation. So I have it set for assault column, so they're not going to change formation. They're just going to move into position in the assault column. But the default movement is the assault column. So if we take a brigade and say we want to, let's use Ballard's brigade here. Again, we'll just un-TC, re-TC the brigade commander, and let's say we want to deploy in line. All right, so we'll move up here, and we'll deploy in line. However, the units do not move in line like they do in the stock game, or marching column like they do in the stock game. They move in the assault column. So assault column becomes the default battlefield formation for maneuver on the battlefield. And it really helps to avoid that swirly conga line thing. Because if you take one of these formations and just rotate them, it just doesn't look as stupid because it happens very quickly. It doesn't have that swirly effect. You know what I mean? That the line formations do. So you don't have that messy chorus line of swirling and whirling units on the battlefield, because every time you go to move a brigade or a unit, they're going to first form assault column, and then they'll select whatever formation you want. So this brigade over here, I set to form line, which is not going to work because I'm overlapping this brigade. So let's move them a little further forward here and deploy in line. But they're still going to move in the assault column until they get to that position. So I'm going to speed up time here. And we'll just bring everybody into position. Now, as they approach their positions, watch what happens. So here, these are the most closest units coming into position here. They'll reach their position, and then they will go into the line formation. And there they go. Let's speed up time to complete this little maneuver. The only reason these two stacked up is because of the river. They can't get they didn't deploy on the other side, but we can move them there on our own. And you see each battalion takes up the line formation once they reach their position. Now, what happens if you want to move in line, though? Right? Because now I've just established that for all movement, the Grog toolbar defaults to column by division first. Well, that goes back to what I talked about earlier when I opened up these formations, and we had one called line hold form. What this is short for is move in line while holding formation. So if you still do want to move in line, for instance, if you just want to shift or advance a little bit because maybe the enemy you're shooting on are falling back or whatever, and you want to advance your position, but you don't want to lose the line formation, that's all you do. Open this, right? Well, first you have to select a position to move to, and then just hit line hold form, and they will stay in line, right? So as you can see, I'm speeding up time, but they are moving in line. So you can, in fact, still move in line even with the Grog toolbar. But instead of it being the default movement protocol like in the stock game, you have to select it. You have to say, I purposely want to move in this formation. I want to stay in line. So you still have the option to do it, and in fact, you can do it at the brigade level. So if we, oh no, that's Ballard. Where's my other brigade? Right. So if we want to form, if we want to move and move in line, we can do that even at the brigade level. Okay. All right. So let's move them forward a little bit, and hit line, hold, form, and they will move into line before moving. If I speed up time, you'll see they're moving out of column by division, and they're moving into their line formations. So they take the line formation as soon as you hit the line, hold, form button. So even at the brigade level, you can still move all your brigades in line if you want to. It's just that you have to purposely select it that way, as opposed to it being the default protocol like in the stock game. All in all, that is for the better, because most of the time you do want to move in the assault column and then transition into whatever formation you're looking to be in once you reach your destination. There's very few instances where moving an assault column is not the best option. It usually is. Okay, so what else do I need to talk about here? Okay, so there's a couple of little hiccups that I've noticed, and I just want to bring them. I've already mentioned them to Randy, and I just want to show them to you guys here just so you're aware of them. None of these are really anything I would consider game-breaking, or they're going to really stop you from enjoying the game. Some of these didn't even exist in the old Grog toolbar anyway, so it's not like you're even missing anything. So in the patch notes, or in the notes for what the companion mod brings, he mentions... where did I see that here? Hang on one second. I'm scanning the patch notes here. Okay, so where it says the infantry march movement defaults formations are changed from column to column by division, which is what I just covered. It also mentions when given road march commands, formations will default to columns. Now, I assumed that meant marching columns, because if it's just talking about the regular assault columns, well then why would you even need to mention it? Because that's just what the toolbar defaults to automatically. So I assumed he was talking about marching columns. However, when I actually tried this out, that's not what I found happened. So if I click on a, if I click on a brigade here, let me go up to the brigade commander. Come on. Where's the brigade commander? Yes, Pettit. If I click on the brigade commander, and let's just turn them around here and form the assault column, I can speed up time for now. And just let these guys get into position. All right. So what I assumed this to meant that is if I give a movement order and I hit the use roads function, that it would transition into the marching column, like a road march. Because if it was just saying that it's going to default to column and meant column by division, like I said, why would you even need to mention it? That's already the default for the Grog toolbar. So I assumed that if you were using roads, you would get a marching column. However, when I try this, that's not what happens. So let's try and move this brigade down here somewhere, and we'll have it use roads. So I'm going to take the leader and move him here, and then at the battalion level, I'm going to hit use roads. If I just hit this one, leader use roads, then only the leader would move. But if I hit this one, the whole brigade will move with it. Right? So they're all moving, but they're not transitioning into a marching column. If you notice, they're all still in assault column. They're not even using roads. Now, this could be because I'm simply too close. It's not worth going on the road for a movement that short. That would be my guess. We can actually try a longer march and see if that actually changes. But regardless, they are not moving into marching column. They are in fact scheduled to take marching column when they reach their destination. So now I'm going to speed up time, and you can see neither are they using roads or using the marching column. However, like I said, I think they're not using roads only because this is just not far enough travel to warrant using roads. If I took a brigade that was much further away, I bet it would, and we will check that in a second. And now, as they approach their destination, now they take the marching column, which would seem to me to be the opposite of what it should be. Ideally, I would like it to be something like, if I want to use roads, and let's say we're going to go all the way up here, and let's say I want to form assault column with my brigade up here, but I want them to march along the road and use marching column along the road and then deploy into the assault column. That would be the way I would think it should work, but that's not what happens. So if I do that, so let's put the brigade back up here, let's set it to assault column, and let's hit use roads. It does default, it takes me out of the assault column and does put me into the marching column, but where is that brigade now? There they are. They are still moving in assault column, right? That's still assault column. That's not a marching column, right? You can see it's still the boxy assault columns. Now they are moving along the road, but not the way I would expect them to. They're not in a marching. They're not in a marching column. They're just in column by division, moving like they normally would, and just staying right up on each other. So they're as close to the road as they can be. So I don't think this is quite working the way Reb intended it to, in that they're not transitioning into marching column to move along the road and then deploying into assault column. Instead, it's having the opposite effect, and it is it's moving them in assault column, and then it's going to deploy them into marching column when they get to their destination, which is backwards from the way I would think you would want to do it, right? You march on the road in marching column, and then when you get to where you want to be, then you deploy into your battle formations. So right now, I don't think this is working the way Reb intended. I did mention it to him. He did tell me he was going to take a look at it. And we'll see what happens with that. But this is one of the reasons I don't want to go and start making my Grog toolbar series while stuff like this is still not working the way I thought it would. Another thing I wanted to talk about, I do not have the context menu enabled, but in the patch notes for the companion mod, it does say the very last thing is beefed up context menus. So I did enable the context menu at one point before, just to see what it did, and what it really did was just add the Grog toolbar formations to the context menu. If you want to use the context menu, you now have the full range of Grog toolbar formations in that context menu. I never use it because it's just an extra pop-up menu, and all the formations are on the toolbar. So I have never really found a reason to use the context menu, except in hits. In hits, the context menu has some cool features, and one of them is that you can stack up different orders into one courier when you're playing Headquarters of the Saddle. If you do it by right-clicking the stuff like the movement, the officer stance, the formation, if you right-click every one of those and then left-click execute on the context menu, it will just send out one courier carrying all of those messages, as opposed to the way I do it without the context menu, where every single command I send is its own courier. So it does give you that benefit in terms of being able to stack up orders into one courier. That way, if the courier gets killed, it cancels all your orders, as opposed to canceling maybe one or two of your orders, and then your other order, just whatever one makes it to the destination, doesn't make a lot of sense because the other orders didn't arrive. So it is a cool way to either make sure that your orders get carried out or none of them get carried out. Your courier either survives or dies, and he takes all his orders with him. So there are some reasons why the context menu could be cool, but really, in my opinion, only if you're playing Headquarters in the Saddle and using couriers. So as you can see, we have this brigade moving up, and it has never at any point transitioned to marching column. They have kind of gotten into a front-to-back order here where the assault columns are marching one behind the other, but that is still not quite right. Right? They're marching in assault column. They're using the road, but they're marching in assault column, and when they get here, that's when they're going to deploy into the marching column. So backwards. Right, you should be marching in in marching column and then deploy into assault column. So, like I said, I mentioned that to Randy that it's. I don't think it's working the way it's meant to. It's possible I could be executing it wrong, but I tried a whole bunch of different ways to get the units to march in marching column, and I never could get it to work. So. I just don't think it's quite working the way it's meant to work. What else did I want to cover? Okay. Something I noticed when I did a playthrough of the, when I was just trying this out, I did a quick playthrough of the Emperor's Plan, and as everybody knows, the Emperor's Plan is a very skirmisher-heavy scenario in terms of basically all you're using to fight that scenario is skirmishers. So I noticed something when I had a whole bunch of skirmishers kicked out. Now, as we know, the new safeguard is in place so that if you try to kick off skirmishers while a battalion is TC'd, so I'm clicked on this battalion right now and you see I have them TC'd. To avoid the skirmisher bug, which is basically the kind of issue with the toolbar where it will not flip and allow you to recall your skirmishers if you have them TC'd, move them before the AI has a chance to. Right. So what this safeguard does is when you click on a unit that's TC'd and you go to split off skirmishers, it immediately takes the battalion off TC. So as soon as I clicked that and brought up this menu, you see that battalion is no longer TC'd. So if I split off a skirmisher unit, that skirmisher is also no longer TC'd, and as you can see, the AI pushes them forward, which triggers the toolbar to flip. So let's just take this position right here, and we will TC the battalion here. And it's not happening here because, unfortunately, I am not in combat, which means I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this in this scenario. But it's it's so important that I demonstrate this because this is the thing I noticed that really kind of I think is the biggest issue. So I'm going to get out of this scenario here, and we're going to go and actually get into the Emperor's Plan here and just play as much as we need to see if I can bring this issue to light here. So where is the old Emperor's Plan here? Should be scenario 1. Okay, let's boot this up. And I'm sorry, guys, this video did turn out to be a little longer than I was hoping. But the companion mod does bring a heck of a lot of new stuff to the game. So I just wanted to make sure and really go over a lot of the stuff it really changes so that you guys know. Okay, so this is the scenario message. And, basically, we just have to clear the woods. And we should get another message in a second here. Yes. This is just from the battalion out front letting us know that it has split off some skirmisher units. So these skirmisher units are all moving on their own right now. We can just TC them, and we'll just choose different destinations for them. So let's take this one and just march it right in here. And we'll take this one, bring it to about here. And we'll take the rightmost one and just bring it here. Maybe more like right here. And maybe we'll split off a few more just to thicken up the skirmisher line a little. Again, let the AI move it forward first, and this toolbar will flip right here. It'll go and become the recall button. Right? There it goes. Now we can TC them and move them wherever we wish to move them. We'll just Stick them, yeah, maybe at the outer edge here. And these guys are just all leaving? No? No? I have never seen this. Come on, guys. I need you to fight. Oh, you cowards, don't run away. Look at this. You chickens. Oh my god. Alright. I gotta reboot the scenario because I don't know why they're running away. You chickens. That was annoying. I just played that scenario too, and they didn't do that. Every once in a while, I have seen that happen, actually, where it just chooses to withdraw right into the fort and surrender the objective to you. All right, so let's do this again. So we do have to wait for the courier because that's what triggers this. That's what triggers this battalion to split off its skirmisher units. Okay, so this is just the courier message. There's our skirmisher units. Now we should get our skirmisher message. There it is. Okay, and now we're just gonna wait for them to start moving, and we'll TC them. Hopefully these guys don't run off again like they just did. And TC them. All right, and let's just run them in there and get our little skirmisher line a-going. I wonder if I moved too close to the units and scared them. Maybe that was it. Maybe I'll try and place my skirmishers a little further back. Okay, they appear to be standing there now. So let's deploy a couple of more skirmish units. And again, I'm just going to let the AI move them forward before I start TCing them, so the toolbar flips. And then once they get into combat here, hopefully I can show you the issue I'm talking about. Where's Bowden? We'll just bring Bowden forward here for the commander bonus. And I'm going to detach this battalion just so if I do any brigade level commands, the battalion and its skirmishers will not be affected. Let's move these guys in line. Okay. Alright, so we got our skirmisher line deployed and we are engaged in the fight. And let's see if I can get this bug to trigger here. So what it was is that I noticed that some of these skirmishers, something triggered them to go into the line fight formation, which is a battalion level formation. And once they did, and since I already have them on TC, the toolbar flipped back to the battalion toolbar as opposed to the skirmisher version of the toolbar. And I again had my skirmishers locked out where I couldn't recall them. Because all of a sudden now my skirmisher units were able to choose battalion level formations. Normally, you know what guys? Right here, better position. Normally, skirmishers don't have that ability to change formation. They're just only in a skirmisher formation. So if you ever click on a skirmisher unit and see, these guys need to come forward too. Let's go. If you ever click on a skirmisher unit and you have the ability to change formations, and you're in like line fight instead of the skirmisher formation, you've just had what happened to me happen to you, and it will lock out the toolbar again, and you won't be able to recall your skirmishers. So we're just going to fight the scenario a little bit here and see if I can get that to happen. I am not sure what I did to trigger it in my first playthrough, but I've never seen skirmish units take battalion level formations and lock the toolbar out like that, and I'm not sure what's causing that. So let's bring this line unit up in front and just add their muscle to the firepower here. So this is just my normal Emperor's Plan strategy here. I just surround the, I just enter the area. We'll advance this brigade, this skirmisher unit a little bit, and I just kind of surround them like in a horseshoe like this, and just, you know, I'm in skirmish formation. They're not. They're in battalion line formation, even though they are very small units. So I'm going to tear them apart. I'm shooting them like they're ducks. All my skirmisher units here are getting the best of this situation, and it's simply a formational advantage. I'm in skirmish formation, and they're not. It's that simple. But what we're really trying to do here is see if we can find out what triggers this. There it is. There it is. So it's the advance. It's the advance that does it. All right, guys. I have figured it out, I think. Let's test this again. Let's test this again. So I'm going to take this unit and hit advance while engaged, and let's see if that triggers. Yep, there it is. Guys, do not use advance or probably retreat with skirmisher units, because now I'm not considered to be in that line fight, in that skirmish formation. I'm considered to be in the battalion formation. Line fight can move. But I flipped back to I've flipped back to a battalion toolbar, so now I can't recall my skirmishers. And because I've moved them, and because they're on TC, I can never get that back again. So I have locked out my ability to recall skirmishers. So now, even now they're not on TC, the toolbar isn't flipping. Why? Because I've already locked it out. Oh, there it goes. It did. All right, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I always thought if you moved and you had the unit on TC, that is what stopped it from flipping the toolbar. Maybe that's changed. This is a new version of this, so some of this may be different from what I remember, but that used to be what would lock out the toolbar, is moving and you have them on TC. Let's see if we can undo it with this one. I couldn't undo it in the previous playthrough I did. It would. Oh, there we go. Okay. So you can still flip these. But if you want to avoid that situation, guys, I advise not using advance or retreat or fall back while engaged, because that seems to be what is causing the toolbar to flip back to its battalion layout instead of the skirmisher layout. So right now you can see I could recall the skirmisher unit, unsplit unit, if I want to. But if I hit advance or retreat while engaged, that's what flips the toolbar. And now this is back to split unit, not unsplit, and I'm considered to be in the line fight formation. But it looks like all I have to do is take the skirmisher unit off TC, and it will flip back. And let's see if that happens a third time. There we go. Okay. All right. So it doesn't lock out the toolbar. I probably just didn't wait long enough in my first playthrough. Nevertheless, I am still going to ask Randy to look into this, because if you don't know this and you use the advance while engaged, you're going to flip your toolbar back to the battalion line formation, and you're not going to be able to unsplit your battalion, unsplit your skirmish unit, and recall them, unless you then go and take it off TC. And now this is the fourth time I'm trying, and it flipped back again. So I would say that's pretty consistent, but it's a problem still, because you have to know that. I literally just figured that out right now, because at first I thought you couldn't even flip the toolbar back after you got it locked. It apparently looks like I just didn't wait long enough when I was playing before, and that it will flip. So it doesn't lock out the toolbar permanently, but I still think it's an issue, because it is flipping the toolbar back to its battalion version instead of staying in the skirmisher layout. So I would honestly, if you want to advance, just do it manually. Just click and run them into position, and advance your skirmisher units manually like that, rather than using the advance while retreat. I mean, if you understood what I just found there, then go ahead and do it. It doesn't actually appear to change the formation. They still appeared to be in the skirmish formation, but it was reading like it was in battalion line fight formation. So we'll do it again. We'll advance, and you see it's not changing the formation. I still am in skirmish formation, but it's reading like it's battalion line fight, and I can't unsplit the skirmishers while it's in that formation, while the toolbar is laid out like this. So to get it back, you have to take the unit off and let it go back. And now you can TC again. So just be aware of that, guys, because right now, and I'll recall these guys, there's nobody else out here. Right now, that is an issue. In that if you hit advance while engaged while you're firing on the enemy, you're going to flip your toolbar back to the battalion toolbar, and basically you won't be able to recall your skirmishers while they're in that while you're there in that formation. So if I click on an actual battalion, you can see, here we go, this is the actual line battalion toolbar, and yeah, this is right. It's supposed to be this split battalion for a line unit, and we have those formations. Whereas if you click on a skirmisher unit, and it happened again, they're in line fight. This time I didn't choose that. They just went into it on their own. So let's see if I can unlock it. Okay, I can. And now we're back in business. Okay. Okay. So yeah, guys, just be aware of that. Currently using advance and probably retreat while engaged. However, let's just confirm it right now. Let's use fallback while engaged. Oh, no, fallback engaged does not do it. Okay, I don't know why one would be different than the other, but fallback while engaged does not trigger the toolbar to flip and to go back to the line battalion toolbar. But advance does. Don't ask me why. But I pointed this out to Randy, and hopefully he changes it so that you can advance and still stay in with this toolbar, with the skirmisher. That's really all he needs to do. I'm sure that's just an oversight. And let's make this toolbar flip back. And there it goes. Okay, so it at least seems that it is not a permanent lockup. It's just that if you hit the advance while engaged button, it's going to flip the toolbar back to the battalion toolbar, and you won't be able to recall your skirmishers. But all you have to do to get it to flip back to the skirmisher toolbar is just un-TC it, and it'll flip back. And there it goes. So it seems very consistent to me that it's not a permanent lockup. But however, it is still something you definitely want to be aware of, because if you do advance while engaged, while you have that toolbar flipped, you will not be able to recall your skirmishers because the button changes from unsplit to split. So you won't be able to recall them. And I cannot be certain either that over time you might not do something that would cause the toolbar to permanently lock up. So all in all, I think it would just be better if we just made it so that advance while engaged does not trigger that. So I will mention that now that I couldn't identify what I did before that triggered that to happen, but now I've identified that it's hitting the advance while engaged button. So I will mention that to Randy. I think that's all I need to cover as far as what the companion mod brings into place. The rest of it was just animation stuff, like adding the fire. You can see that with my one skirmisher unit that is still engaged here, they're not just loading and readying anymore. You can actually see them. If I sit here and look at it for a minute, you'll see some of them, they'll level their guns and you'll start seeing smoke and all that stuff. Just animation stuff. It doesn't actually change anything. There's the shot, there's the smoke, all that stuff is added to the firing cycle animation. I'm about to get flanked here by these Coldstream guards, so I'm just going to take these guys here and just double click them. These guys are all kind of out of range. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. As far as what it is. Like I said, this is not the official Grog Toolbar series, guys. I'm not doing that until issues like this get resolved. We don't want that to be part of the final Grog Toolbar, because that will confuse a lot of people. Like I said, I couldn't even figure out what triggered it until just now, that it was actually advanced while engaged. I am happy to see that it's not a permanent lockup. If you do accidentally do this, flip the toolbar like this, all you have to do is is take them off TC, and it looks like the toolbar will every time reset. So I am happy about that. And the rest of the stuff, like I said, is just animation stuff, which is, yeah, like I said, doesn't have any gameplay relevance. It just makes the game look cooler. So I think that covers everything, guys. I will mention to Randy that I figured out what is causing this issue, and hopefully we can get all these little tiny things ironed out before I go into the Grog toolbar series. And with that, guys, I will see you guys for the next update, and maybe I'll even get into some gameplay and like actually playing the game now that I have my toolbar the way it should be. So let's get out of this, and all right, guys, I will see you next time. Take it easy.